All right, so with our handsome Mr. Bernie, ready? We're gonna warm up a little bit with some find its and then a bit with some recall. So Bernie, here. See, now I'm doing his. I keep getting all confused because the beauties have different slogans sometimes for coming when called. So of course I did Mr. Bodie's recall word. So we'll do it again. So obviously you could say banana split, and most of the time your babe, because of your visual, so your body language, as well as your hand signals too, get them to think that checking in, nice job, is what you're looking for. So we'll do again a little find it. And then Bernie, come. Yes, good job. So don't worry if you're like me and you blurt out the wrong thing. The main goal is that your puppy is still working on that coming to you and orientation from the environment. So Mr. B as well, both Mr. B's are doing a really nice job. So I'm tossing it real far. Bernie, come. And then feeding for that lovely recall. What a smart boy. So you'll see that his enthusiasm for coming when called is quite lovely. If you weren't getting this, and sometimes if you're blabbing like I am, you don't always get to ask for the slogan as they come into your space. But as long as he is physically reorienting from the environment and coming back to you, I'd feed those moments. Bernie, come. Yes, good job. So we're just starting off with a little bit of wiggles this way to kind of get the body in the groove. Ready, find it? And some of them are really hard to find because they blend with the floor. Because he's got itty bitty little crumbs, but then some of them are also, they are hard to distinguish against the dark floor. Bernie, good job. So sometimes we're also just reinforcing for lovely name recognition and heading back towards the handler. Ready, find it? I'm just trying to create more distance. Bernie, come. So right now he's actually on the odor. Yes, nice job. He almost found his little morsel, but I think it may have gone in one of the cracks. Nice job. So if you ever call your gorgeous guy and there's no response, like I mentioned in some of the previous videos, be careful that your environment is not so difficult that your dog cannot be functional in that setup. So for Mr. B, we'll just do a little bit with some loose leash walking. He is a naked gentleman, so he's not wearing anything right now. Sometimes it's nice to have them have a little break from their equipment. Too, when they're also not being supervised, for example, they're not out here, they're in their little suites taking naps. They also go in with no gear. Bernie, come. We'll see, caught myself. So and the reason they go into their little suites with no gear on is it's much better for safety reasons. So even at home, I recommend a naked pup if you can. Most pups tend to be microchipped. If they're not the end of the world. And if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. But there's going to be moments where your dog could become entangled with their collar. So a lot of their collars tend to have their information, like their tags and all that fun. But the problem is if we're not always supervising what is going on, there have been moments where dogs have gotten stuck either in their crate or corral or in something in the home. So sometimes the grates that we have, or like whatever they are for the heat ducts that have the warm airflow in and out of them, they can sometimes get caught in some of those. So you do want to be really careful with gear on, especially if you're not home. Two, if your babes are wrestling, I prefer, like I know you guys have seen him playing at the structured play program and he's doing a beautiful job. But I do sometimes leave harnesses on, but I do tend to take most of the gear off otherwise if it's a collar. There are a couple dogs that are sometimes at times wearing a collar, but it's mostly because they're still working on feeling safe when we go to handle. So if, for example, they're a little bit of a nervous dog and we're rushing to put a collar on, for some of those dogs, it's very triggering. So for safety reasons for them too, and so they don't get too flustered, I do sometimes leave a collar on, but it's a buckle collar. So typically the safest way for them to play is typically naked. So, but I do have in an emergency setup, I do have, for example, scissors that are meant to cut through material. So if there was ever a hiccup, we do have that as a backup. But again, since it's smaller play groups and they're in little sections, the play dynamic goes really nicely. So Bernie, come. Gorgeous. But for safety reasons, when unsupervised, I highly recommend collars off, harnesses off. So they're either one, not breaking the harness when you're not there to watch, because some puppies, when they get anxious, they chew a little bit more than otherwise. And sometimes since the harness is on, they might go to chew that while it's there and available. So what I'd love to try with Mr. B is work a little bit. I know you guys had mentioned like being able to take and drop items like toys and things he can have. So I know we've dived into a little bit with the toy exchange game and some of those other options too, is you do want to make sure that if your puppy doesn't get the chance to practice taking and letting go of things he can have, he may not know how to let go of something he shouldn't have. So that's why it's important to also work with things he's allowed to have and build up those dynamics. You did mention he's been getting really good with exchanging items, which is awesome. I would keep maintaining that because sometimes as you're going into adolescence, you may have thought, okay, my dog has this skill down pat. We're getting so good. You start to not work it as often, or you get a little bit rusty with that practice. And now all of a sudden come adolescence, your pup may completely almost forget what you were working on, and they might need a little extra help reworking those skills. So what helps keep your dog's consistent and even us is maintaining practice throughout those different life stages. We get a really good sense of sort of security from our puppies because they're very attentive, or they're very interested in us, or they're very sort of intrigued. The problem is come adolescence, when hormone changes, or just in general, if they've already been altered, they're still going to go through adolescence even without the hormones. But we do find that for a lot of puppies, adolescence is the hardest age group. It is where most dogs are relinquished to shelters. And the reason behind that is people get a really easy feel for puppies and they're like, oh, this is going to go great. They're doing fine. They've liked everything around them. And now all of a sudden come adolescence and they start to notice novelty, and maybe they start to get a little overwhelmed by it, and they start to bark or lunge or show from what we've deemed aggression, but it's typically, again, a fear response. So a lot of times puppies around 1 year, give or take a few months, are the ones that end up going to the shelter. So my goal as a trainer is to make sure that through education, we as our dog's caregivers understand what's going on behaviorally, but then also what's going on physically for our puppies and how to set them up for those successful moments in our weird human world. So ready? He's like, oh my gosh, I swear I dropped it. So with Mr. B, I was practicing a little bit with him on my left, and now I'm working him a little bit on my right. I do like to rotate so my puppies feel safe trying both sides. He's like, oh my gosh, we lost one. It did roll away. He kicked it as we were walking. Nice, good job. So I want him right there. That was a little positive interrupter. That's one of my favorites too, if you guys haven't done that one as much. So with the positive interrupter, the benefit to this one is, let's say your dog is doing something you're not a huge fan of, and you would normally reprimand or scold or get loud and sort of a little spooky to try to stop them. I instead always like to think, oh, you go right in the crack, shucks. It's a human-made little puzzle for him. So let's say we tend to yell or get loud or intimidating. The problem with that is, again, just like I mentioned a little earlier, is your babe will not understand that you're mad as to what he's doing. He's going to think in general you're becoming agitated or aggressive to him. So a lot of times when people say, oh, when my puppy knows he was doing something wrong, that would be great and all, but remember that their frontal lobes do not connect the same way ours do. So they cannot, out of spite or vengeance or revenge, do something to agitate you. So your puppies are doing things because they either feel safe or unsafe, or, for example, it gives them an out or a release or reinforcement. So even though we don't find, for example, fence fighting as a reinforcement, because it doesn't seem like a good idea, it gives your dog an out and it gives them something to do. And for some dogs, it's very reinforcing because of the fact that it gives them a lot of big feelings. So almost like someone that maybe doesn't know how to handle their anger will at times become physical, and they might too also need some help. So when it comes to our dogs, if they are always at the very edge of that comfort range, that might be why behavior is also very much so exaggerated. So this is really pretty for Mr. Handsome right here. So we're getting some beautiful loose leash walking. So back to that positive interrupter, what that consists of is, let's say your babe is about to do something you don't love. You could, for example, go ahead and do the Kissy-Noise, and that means come check in for something really good. So I sometimes like to warm this up by, for example, doing a find it. So your puppy has the chance to move away. He didn't see that one. And then from there, you go, and then when Mr. B comes to check in, Yes, I feed him for that. So your puppy's maybe about to jump up. Maybe they're about to go grab something. Maybe they do have something. And you make little kissy noise. And then from there, see if the babe does whatever they were doing and they stop for a second and they come to check in. So right here, yes. You can also make this very beneficial from his perspective. So what I mean by that, let's say you are trying to build up a really great value in the kissy noise itself. This could also be how you could also condition a whistle to always equaling come check in. So for example, I would go and feed. And again, he's like, Lydia, I dropped it. He's got such a fluffy little face. He's so handsome. I think he got a little grooming, so it looks very dapper. So he's like, Lady, I lost that one. So what this is going to look like, he did lose it and it rolled away, so he's trying to find it. So with loading, for example, a marker or loading a thing like a whistle or the kissy noise, you could go ahead and go and feed, and feed, and feed. Nice. So we're creating that kissy noise. He's like, yes, equals really amazing. So now I might on purpose send him away. So I toss a little something so he can go get distracted. Yes, good job. So that way, let's say he was about to start jumping or do something I don't love, you could then regain your babe's attention through that kissy noise. So that's called the positive interrupter. It's, again, one of my favorites because it's a great way to create engagement from the environment and then back to you. So again, yes. This is not going to replace a recall. I'm just kind of showing it in a dynamic where it is kind of him following and finding a crumb and then coming back into my space. Excuse me, but this could be very easily, he's about to hop up on the counter. He jumped up on the furniture and you'd rather have him not be there as opposed to saying no and like grabbing and pulling him off of the furniture, which might create more like, oh gosh. Or for some dogs, they might lash out if you go to grab for them if they haven't had good experiences with that. Is then this could be a great way to positively get him to redirect and move without having it become too spooky or overwhelming. So again, a couple great ones to try with the handsome boy. So I know you had mentioned sort of take it and drop it exercises. So grabbing for a toy and letting go, or eventually grabbing for something he shouldn't and also letting go. So don't mind me, sorry, I'm just grabbing some toys. So we did work on this with Miss J earlier. So I might go, you ready? And then go get it. So we'll see if he wants to do a little bit of play with the toy that wiggles. He's like, yes, please. Nice. So as I've mentioned in some of my puppy classes, the benefit of having a toy that's on a longer lead, for example, like on a tuggy toy like this, is it allows your puppy to grab and chase and tug and bite, so normal doggy behaviors, but on an outlet that is appropriate. So this is not your leash. This is not your pants. This is not your toddler or your cat. So we want to give these outlets, and especially play with you and your dog can be a great way to bond and create more of a rapport together. Two, if your babe doesn't know how to let go of something he should have, how is he going to let go of something he shouldn't have? So this is going to be, again, a great way to build up this drop it and take it behavior, whatever release word you'd like. So with my guys, I have take it and drop it. Some people might prefer drop it. Some people like out. Some people like release. I don't use leave it because leave it means it's going to be off limits and it's nothing that we want to play with because it's either dangerous or not for you to have. So it's more of a no item that's off limits. So right here, we might go ready, drop it, and then feed for that. So if your puppy's like, yes, ma'am, let's go, you can then either play again and then reinforce by letting go the game starts over, or you could have two toys and rotate through those. So I know I did that a little bit earlier with Miss J. So she was working one toy, then the other toy goes limp and the new toy comes out. So now this way, you could have Mr. B play with this next toy. This toy kind of goes a little bit out of range. And now we're playing with our new tuggy. Where'd it go? He's like, I swear there's food somewhere. So while he's playing then with this bad boy, he could rotate. So if I wanted to exchange it for another toy, I would then stop tugging or pulling and making it come alive, but hold it limp. And then I go, ready, Bernie? Ready? Go get it. And now this one, he's like, no, I really like doing name recognition. He's so smart. So if he really responds well to his name, and he's like, lady, I did my thing, I checked in for my name, If he's a foodie, feed him for letting go. But then you could, again, try and do a little bit more with the play. He might already be winded. What do you think? Are you pooped out? So tired. Well, maybe try another one. See if I can get his interest going on that bad boy. So if he's a bit of a foodie and he forgets how to play, you could have food on the back burner so that way, like if you needed it, you could use it. But otherwise, you might play with 2 tuggies and start that way. For some of the dogs, they don't have very much value in letting go. So that's where food could come into play. What do you think? So this is my little sheepskin tuggy. I do like to play with this one. I know Mr. B and Miss J, they come with one as well from home, and that other really colorful toy, which is really cool. So this one, for example, he's playing, he's tugging. We want to pick our slogan. I'd like to get the food ready prior, and I'd go ahead and say, drop it, and then feed for the let go. If he finds this one really intriguing, ready? I might use this for some attention on me. So now I could use my toy to get his focus. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. Ready, Bernie? What a smart boy. I might even, for this one, as opposed to feeding, I'm going to go good, and he can play instead. So if, let's say, for example, you could use your toys as motivation to reinforce the skill that he just did, that's another great venue for building behavior. He's doing a good job. Smart man. Go get that toy. Oh my goodness, so smart. So if, let's say, he's like, lady, I'm already exhausted. If you're finding that your puppy is letting go often, it might be that he is getting a little tired. Notice how he's panting. So if your puppies are getting tired, you may find that the toy is hard to play with because it involves holding it in his mouth. So if your puppy's trying to pant, like Miss J, she got that cute little nose. So for her, she gets winded kind of quickly, which means that when you're playing, it might be short little bouts. And if she's trying to pant to cool herself down or to regain her breath again, it's very hard to pant if you have a toy in your mouth. So there's going to be times where some of them have gotten really good at panting and holding a toy, but not everybody. So for some of the babes, as they're getting more fatigued, holding onto an item is just too challenging. Ready? Find it. So we'll work another little recall. So Bernie, come. Yes, what a smart boy. You ready? Find it. He's doing a really nice job. Bernie, come. He's a brilliant little man. Ready? Find it. Bernie, come. So smart. Yes. So you can see that his capabilities are really quite nice. If you're not getting this type of response from him or any of the beauties in different venues, again, gauge the environment, or have we also help generalize those skills to different venues? A lot of times, if loose leash walking is only working really well in your home or in here, that's because this environment is a lot softer. So, you know, that's where the going to the group classes can sometimes be nice. Again, this is great for him, but it's just me and him working together. So, which is still nice for you guys to see the dance moves on the video and then practice at home for homework. But it might be nice if you're not really taking this and doing field trips out in the real world, because I know it's been winter wonderland and cold and cruddy and lots of really big snow bankings. We may find another great practice zone could be an open parking lot later when it's not covered in yucks. Or, for example, working in an open field that is a safe place to do so. This doesn't mean to give him complete off-leash time. If it's not a fenced-in zone and he doesn't quite have a full recall, I would highly recommend a long training leash to work those recall practice moments. So we'll do another little find it. And then Bernie, come. What a good job. So for coming when called right here, I'm going to feed him a couple little snacks. Again, a lovely little jackpot where he's getting several one after the other. His snacks are awesome. I love that you chopped them up itty bitty. So very nice job. I'm also a big dork like that, and chopping them up with like either scissors or, for example, a cutting board can work really nice. Good job, sir. So maybe what I'd love to try with him is to do a little bit with the grooming in a moment. So for this gorgeous guy, if again his groomer is doing fine with him, I know we discussed a little bit last time about how behavior and experiences can flow from one venue to another. So if, let's say, for example, we're just going to do a couple find its as I'm blabbing, and then we'll give him a little breather in a second, is if, for example, going to the groomer is going okay, but from experience over and over, he's starting to actually become worse. It could be that at times the grooming might actually be a little too overwhelming and the steps are a little too fast. So green flags would be your groomer saying like, oh, I couldn't really do this, so we are going to hold off till next time and build up to it. Red flags would be like, oh, your dog was really struggling, so I instantly muzzled him and forced him through the whole thing while he was having a really bad time with it. Because remember, just like with us, when our ability to opt out of something gets taken from us, the situation, the experience, and the things around us become then triggering for later. So if we are ever dealing with trauma, remember trauma is something we hold on to pretty well. So same thing with dogs. If they've had negative experiences or lack of experience and then something overwhelming happens, it could ruin their finesse for that down the road. So a lot of times if there's a dog that's struggling at the groomer, at the vet or whatever, if they constantly keep going and every time it gets worse and worse, which means more management in the sense of, you know, being more gruff with them, like holding them down or forcing them into a muzzle. I think muzzle training is a wonderful thing to have under anybody's belt when it comes to getting your dog comfortable with one more thing for equipment, but it shouldn't be the thing that makes them feel hopeless and that the thing they're terrified of happens anyway because their ability to say no thank you has been taken from them. So it's almost like with us, if we were really scared of something and someone says, oh, I know a great way to get you over this, is they force you to do it again, but now you're handcuffed to a chair and the experience happens. So you're going to feel trapped, helpless, and very overwhelmed. And that's what we want to try to avoid with experiences for our puppy, teenager, even adult dogs. So we'll give Mr. B a little break from this, but then I would like to work a few more skills with him, and we'll try a little bit with some grooming as well. So we'll give him a little breather. He did a really nice job with these other skills.